questions from last time?
I don't know.
There was something, you asked me a question during the week.
Oh, about the teachers. And are the teachers that you cover, are they like elders, governors, like governing the universe, or governing mankind? And there's 12 teachers, right? So I was asking if they, like the governors, are they governing mankind?
Levon, why don't you answer that? Hello?
Yeah, she's in the laboratory at the moment.
Okay. TM on.
Okay.
Not available.
Not available.
Can I ask who are the 12 teachers?
Sure, you can ask.
Okay, who are the 12 teachers?
I thought she was asking you, Evelyn. It's Sheldon,
Mm-hmm.
Nick, George, Levon,
Yvonne,
Levon.
Levon. Okay. And she is?
Philadelphia, George's wife,
Okay, alright.
and Kathy and Linda and Ron.
They're in Union, right?
Kathy's in Rock Hill. Ron and Linda are in Spidmere.
Okay.
And there is Barbara and Audrey and Janice.
Nick.
I said Nick.
You said-
Okay.
Mhm. And so that's it.
And Nick is in DC?
So
And Sheldon is in New
Oh,
York?
ST and I forgot.
And
ST and TIFF.
And where?
They're in Spartanburg. ST and TIFF are in Spartanburg. Spartanburg.
Alright.
Yes, James, you asked me something?
Yeah, go ahead, Evelyn. Pose your question.
Good morning, Levon.
Hey, Evelyn, how are you?
Hey, sweetie. I was asking them if the 12 teachers that Pastor cover, are they like the elders or the governing of mankind? Because every time you guys meet, it's like you're setting standards, or it's like you're governing mankind, and that was my question.
That's a question? I'm sorry, Evelyn. Well, you know what? Yeah, for me, yes, Evelyn, and it's to help individuals empower themselves and to help individuals how to live and be the best person they can, and to also we do this thing, George and I, about teaching how to rise above these tough situations that we're in by following the laws of humanity and the laws of especially with the book that we're reading. And I had spoke with George and James, and in reading that book, and you know, it talks about the law of compensation, the law of different things. But the hardest chapter for me was the law of non-resistance, but it has become the easiest chapter for me to apply to my life, and that's what I've been really dealing with people now, is the law of non-resistance. So I don't know if I answered it, but that's where I am right now.
Okay, I hear you.
Okay.
That's a good yeah. Okay, I hear you.
So we run things. Actually, I agree that that's what we do, and the reason I say that, I just want to get a feel from what someone else felt about it. I recognize things change too when we meet. It's not that we alter anything. It's more of a revealing of the unseen. And what I mean by that is the true nature that we were created with. We keep seeing slivers of it's important to understand that because let me explain. Say it this way. One of the greatest misconceptions is the reason for Jesus coming. You know, being in the earth, being born. Because, and I'm very hesitant to use the term Jesus coming because all of us came. You know, one of the misconceptions is that Jesus came to save us so we can go to church. Now, one of the issues I have with that is, I think I mentioned it last week. You can't be a Christian unless you go to church, and you can't be in the church unless you be baptized. And you can't be baptized unless the preacher does it. So now, if the preacher is the one who is in charge of the church, the one who baptizes you, the one who gives you the right hand of fellowship, and you can't be a Christian without those things, then who's your God? You see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Now, Jesus did come to save, and the saving is from extinction. He came to save us from extinction, or to show us how to avoid being extinct. What I'm saying is that we are not the first humans on this earth. All others prior to us are no longer with us. And even the DNA is different than what it was with previous men in the earth. So, because of history, I understand that the story of Jesus is not the only story like that. It is in other cultures. It was like in Egypt 3,000 years before Jesus came on the scene. So there has been a continuous there has been a continuous effort. Hello. You see me?
Is that my sister?
There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Hi, Audrey.
Good morning.
Hey, birthday girl.
Good morning.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Happy B-Day.
Hey.
It's actually Richard's birthday today.
Yeah.
Oh,
Tell
hey,
Richard happy
Richard.
birthday.
Happy
Mine was-
birthday. Okay.
Mine was yesterday.
Happy birthday, Richard.
So
Okay, I'll tell him.
So anyway, Jesus. So the story of Jesus is a story that has been with cultures, with mankind through each period of time. Why? Because there's an effort for humanity. There is a desire, rather, for humanity to remain in the earth until the balance comes. When the scripture says that it is God's desire that none be lost but all be saved, I don't see that as being saved from sin, as we know sin, as we talk about sin. I see that as being saved from extinction, self-destruction.
So save from self.
Save himself, yes.
Save from
From self, yes. Because the extinction does not come because we don't go to church. It doesn't come because we don't, go on our knees and pray. Extinction comes because we ignore the laws of the universe. And I don't mean just the natural laws that governs the weather either. I'm talking about the laws of the universe, period. Because the laws of the universe says that we are to treat each other the way we want to be treated. The law of the universe says that resources are in the earth to maintain the physical bodies of humanity, as opposed to enrich other people, or one group of people, I should say. So
So are the laws of the universe those spiritual laws then?
Correct.
I'm asking the question, so the laws of the universe have their basis in spiritual law, spirit rather than physical.
Right.
The physical emanates from it, but I've gotta understand who I am spiritually, before I can learn how to interrelate with the environment in which I find the spiritual body.
Right. And see, absolutely. The laws of humanity emanated from the laws of the spiritual, but they were contaminated or corrupted. Now, in order for us to remain in the earth, there has to be a type of Adam standing in the gap, meaning that just between heaven and earth, seeking to understand how things were created and to understand what is our divine purpose for being in the earth. All of us have the same purpose. The purpose that we have is to bring balance, of course. If we read what Jesus said, if we read what any of the prophets said for that matter, what we find is the prophets of old prior to Jesus were speaking to humanity about coming to grips with its origin. And that's why it always talks about serving God or helping man to understand that one of the characteristics of Ensof is Yahweh, God, the Lord rather. That's a characteristic. It's not an entity, but it's a characteristic of the entity, Ensof, the one that from which everything comes. And when Jesus came on the scene, it was, for us anyway, it was Jesus talking about how to treat each other. But more importantly, Jesus telling us that you are just like the one who created you. And that's what the scriptures are talking about. But Jesus used so many parables, and the idioms that he employed are unknown to us now because we don't have that. We don't think like people in the East think, and our lifestyles are different. So what we have done, we have allowed Christianity, for the most part, to govern the world, and the Christianity of which I speak is something that is foreign to Jesus. It's foreign to the Bible. As a matter of fact, Christianity is, as a religion, is just as foreign to the Bible as Islam is to the Quran, and as Judaism is to the Chumash. Because if we go to the root of Christianity, where do we go? We go to Rome. So what brought this to mind, someone said we need to go back to our roots. That way we would understand the scriptures better, right? And I'm telling you, no, we can't do that, because if we go back to the roots from which we have come with this Christian thing, we are going back to Rome, and we're going to make the same mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So Jesus is saying now, don't have an organization and label it as something that I brought it to be, because he did not bring Christianity into being.
Mm-hmm.
Rome did. If you look at the meaning of Meshach, Messiah or Christ, if you look at Jesus' name, what it means, if you look at the meaning of Islam, if you look at the meaning of Judah, you don't see a label that describes an organization, but you see a way of life and a desire to bring humanity to a place of understanding who it is. If we start with Judaism, what we see is it comes from the word Judah, which actually means praise, and then if we move from there to Islam, I'm sorry, to Christianity, we see that Mishak talks about an anointing, which actually lends itself to the description of a power that is inherent in all of humanity that we were created with. And if you look at Islam, it means to submit to God. So if we take those and put them together, what I see anyway, if we take the blinders off and begin to be expressive of praise for the one who created us and the one who shepherds us, then we will become aware of the inherent powers that we have to bring balance to this earth. And when we do that, the way we do that is by being submissive to Elohim. And that does not mean an entity outside of you, but being submissive to who you are. And if you look at those, and all I talked about, these three segments, we have made them religions, or these journeys, these opportunities, maybe, I don't know what they call it, but we made each one of them a religion. And each one of those that has become a religion has patterned itself after the ways of this earth and of mankind, and that is they have patterned themselves for the enrichment of themselves. If you look at the rabbi enriches himself by teaching his view as opposed to actually understanding that the scriptures are it's a spiritual story that's told in earthly terms, allegory. The scriptures are an allegory of humanity, and it has been turned upside down, and the question arises: did the Creator know that it was going to happen this way? Yes. Now, so why was it allowed to happen this way? Because the ones who were slated to do something to bring balance to the earth didn't do it. So when Adam's back was against the wall, Adam began to search for a way out. And because of the openness in searching for that way out, Adam has been shown what this allegory is actually talking about. And you can't talk about the allegory of what we call Christianity, New Testament primarily, without talking about the allegory of the Old Testament and the allegory of the Quran, because all of them are the same. And it is my contention that if you look at the Quran carefully enough, you will see that Muhammad picks up where Jesus left off. So it's another prophet, is what I'm saying. And so the salvation is not so we can go, hey, hello? I'm echoing?
Yeah, you're echoing.
Okay, what was my last words? It just threw me something off.
Muhammad is taking the place.
He's one of the prophets.
Oh, okay. He's one of the prophets,
Took up where Jesus is.
and he simply came as an example, and the writings are written a written map, if you please, it serves as a roadmap to show us how to become what we were created to be. And I know what the Adam was pushed up against the wall, and now the Adam is beginning to look at these scriptures in the nature that they were written. And so the salvation has nothing to do with us being baptized in water, has nothing to do with us. I have some. Thank you. It has nothing to do with us going to church. It has everything to do with us searching internally for who we are. The physical representations of religious edicts are actually idols.
Say that part again, Sage?
The physical manifestation of all these religions are actually idols. You think about the cross, it's an idol.
Mm-hmm.
You think about the crescent moon, it's an idol. You think about the Star of David, idols, because these things are reverenced. They are, and if you look at the dress codes that Muslims have, the dress codes that Christians have, the dress code, all of them have. These are manifestations. Now, this is the truth that I see. When you understand the nature of what's in the holy books, you understand that the only manifestation that is required of humanity is for the human to be humane to each other, and that in itself brings balance. Now, the nature that of the human is the nature that humans have developed, but all the development has its origin in the spiritual, and the root of it is in the words of Adam saying, "For this cause shall a man leave father, mother, blah, blah." Now, all of this was allowed for. All of this was it was understood that all of this was going to come into being, and that is the reason. If you look at the Genesis of it all, you look at Bereshit, Genesis, it says, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you just stop with those two, enlightenment and the nature of the human were created. In the beginning, created heaven and earth.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the foundation of the transition from being created in an image to becoming what created you. And the nature of that is to be seen in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, as well as the tree of life. Now Jesus, being human, became balanced. He became balanced. And what am I saying? From the time that the story of Jesus begins and up to the cross, this is an example of good and evil, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, being in a man. After the resurrection, it is representative of the tree of life. Because once you become totally balanced and once you become one with, then you can manifest as human or spiritual. Are you following me?
Mm-hmm.
So, go ahead. Excuse me.
I'm a little lost, but I think maybe I'll get there.
What did I lose you?
When you said it's manifested in man, when man is think?
I said good and evil is manifested in man.
Okay.
Jesus was an example of that before the cross. After the resurrection, he was balanced.
Okay, alright.
That's what I said. So this whole journey has been laid before us for quite some time, and it is true. I truly believe that mankind would have gone extinct in 2012 has not been somebody to stand in the gap to say, I will carry the ball across the finish line. And we're still teetering on it. Now, this is what I see when it comes to prevention of extinction. Prevention of extinction has nothing to do with changing the climate to where it once was. Prevention of extinction has everything to do with becoming who we were created to be. Once that takes place, then everything else falls into place. You say, well, why is it that the climate is so out of whack? Because humanity is out of whack. You see how more vicious the storms are becoming?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Do you see how vicious man is becoming?
yes.
So it is not becoming as much as it is being revealed. All of this has been beneath the surface all of this time.
So it's just being peeled.
I want to do a comparison with you in a second. Go ahead.
So it's just being it's not hidden, it's more visible to the naked, to the human eye.
Okay, let me show you something.
Okay.
Prior to this era of Trump, right?
Mm-hmm.
Prior to this era, you saw, well, let me go even before that, prior to Obama. You saw spurts of racism.
Yeah.
You know, just
Mhm.
sprinklings of it. And you saw hurricane, tornadoes, but nowhere near like they are.
Right.
The more vicious, the more evident racism became, the more the climate changed. The more evident misogynism became, the more the climate changed. So these things are in tandem with each other. And that's one of the reasons I am not upset. It doesn't bother me. And the reason it doesn't bother me is because it's always the darkest before the dawn. You know, everything has to be exposed in its true nature before change can take place. So when we bring balance to humanity, then we will bring balance to climate as well.
And that's why I asked the question about the 12 elders, the governors that you cover, is because you and I talked, the world is in a crisis. And my question again is, I have another question about that. So, is it your responsibility, our responsibility to get this right? Because if the people that you're covered and the teachers of, if you don't get it right, will mankind become extinct then?
Yes.
That's how
I'm
serious
saying
it is.
This is very, yes, it's extremely serious. There's no doubt in my mind that the Creator has granted a reprieve because we do what we do. I'm not uncomfortable anymore talking about the exceptional revelation of power that we are experiencing. And what I mean by that is the 12 of whom you speak are the 12 who this power is being revealed to. You say, well, what is the need for everyone else to be taught if you all are doing this? Well, first of all, if there was no one to be taught, then there would be nothing put into the macro. If there was no one being taught, there would be no questions about things that are going on in the earth. This is what Jesus came to deal with. But what happened is religion became an organization for profit, and when it became an organization for profit, it had to write rules. And the rules are denominational in nature. And the rules are, you can't be a part of this club if you don't get baptized. And the rules are, you take communion on the first Sunday. That's Christianity, of course, what I'm talking about. You take communion on the first Sunday. The rules are, you can't touch the communion table, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
However, when we look at it from the perspective that Jesus dealt with it, the only reason that he dealt with being immersed in water is simply because that was one of the rituals that the Jews, that the Hebrews respected.
Mhm.
And in order for him to become the rabbi that he's supposed to be, which simply means teacher, but he had to actually go through those rituals. Otherwise, nobody would listen to him.
I can see that.
So, the rituals were a bridge then,
Yes.
because that's where they were, and he had to make that contact before he could show them
Right.
the different way.
And that's and I'll show you something else. I read the Quran many years ago. I took comparative religion. I was 19. I was supposed to do it. I did actually in the initial sermon and walked away from it. Okay, didn't want to do that. But when I look at things retrospectively, I see that without having been an ordained minister and having doors open to me on the state, national, international level, I would not be able to do what I'm doing because nobody would let me in the church. I couldn't have been in the pulpit. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So the same thing with all the teachers. All the teachers, with the exception, of course, of the younger ones, were reared in church settings, and we are become a bridge between what is and what was. Can you see that?
I do, but now I see why you guys can't sleep, because you up for a reason. I mean, if you guys sleep, then things won't get. I'm not gonna say things won't get done,
Right.
but we're
I
up for a
understand what you're
reason.
saying.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I see how crucial this thing is, and I know it's more to it.
And it is, and it's not that if we, air quotes, get it wrong,
Mm-hmm.
because we won't. It's impossible for us to get it wrong. The other thing that's impossible is for us to stop
Stop.
doing what we do.
Oh yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no-
I mean,
Where to
we
go?
have become a huge stone rolling down a steep mountain, and everything that gets in its way gets crushed. So that stone is not going to stop until it gets to where it's supposed to be. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't see that at all. It is my contention that we at some point are going to have to come together with the primary focus being on religion. Because right now, the government of religion is extremely destructive. Because, and I think I spoke at length about this last week, the government, I talked about two governments. The government of the earth and the government of the spiritual. The government always sets boundaries. The government writes rules. The government determines policy. The spiritual government does the same thing. However, it is more detrimental to men being aware of who they are. And the reason I say that is because it puts limitations on us spiritually. You can't do what Jesus did, yet the scriptures say you can. You can't say anything that is interpreted as profaning the name Muhammad. You can't say anything about the brutality of Israel towards the Palestinians because you're anti-Semitic. So the religion set boundaries that keeps us from being aware of who we are. So both of these are governments that have been put in place to benefit a handful of people in the earth. Religion benefits the same people that government benefits. And religion, without understanding how brutal slavery was in this country and not taking anything away from that brutality, but also understanding that we traded one plantation for another. We came off a cotton plantation and went to a plantation of pews. Because the same ones who were the enslavers are the same ones who developed the plantation of pews. So the boundaries are set, and I will give you an example of that. I was teaching on Monday night, and I was talking about, we were talking about, no, it wasn't mine, that was, who was I teaching? Anyway, we were talking about intellect, and I was talking about how I saw this thing about these kids in school, and the African kids were told, and I'm talking about Africans born in America, were told that you can't take these advanced courses because you may fail. So why don't you just take one and ease into it? But the white kids are told, sure, take all of them. And the African kid is told that what they can't do, but the white kids are not. Now, when I made that statement, I also said this: if I say that the white kid is told what he can do and can't do, and the black kid is told what he can do, or if I say the white kid is smarter than the black kid, that's fine. But don't let me say the black kid is smarter than the white kid. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So we are here in this earth to change those kinds of attitudes, because if we don't, the government of religion and the government of the earth are going to keep us on the plantations. We have been so browbeaten until it is in our DNA to be afraid to speak the truth. If you are in the workplace, or if you're in the workplace, and someone is talking about how much they support Donald, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And you being African start talking about the greatest president was Obama. You're not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why is it so discomforting to talk about Obama the way Trump folk talk about Trump. Why is that so discomforting? Why are we so uncomfortable with that? Because for the same reason, we did the same thing with Clinton. Nobody didn't want to talk about Clinton when they talked about Bush. Why? Especially Southern Africans. Because we have been taught that you do not talk back to white people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the government of the church and the government of the state.
Aren't they one?
They are, but they are one because one birthed the other. The government of religion birthed the government of the state.
Mm-hmm.
And it manipulates the same way. And if you think about it, the foundation of Christianity, the roots of Christianity is extremely wealthy. It's based on money. I got to pay. The Catholic Church is extremely wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the foundational roots of Islam, they're wealthy. Saudi Arabia is wealthy. Got it?
Mm-hmm.
Now Judaism was stolen. Europeans stole Judaism from the people who look like from Africans.
Mm-hmm.
And however, the same thing was stolen with Christianity in Rome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you look at Judaism, the foundational portion of Judaism, very wealthy. Very, very wealthy. So, to say that the church is not about money is crazy. To say that religion is not about money is crazy. Because the foundation of all of it is extremely wealthy, financially wealthy now. However, if you look at what Jesus was teaching, when Jesus said, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar, what Jesus is actually saying is, listen, give the government what belongs to it because you don't need it. Now, if you give the government what belongs to it because you don't need it, that also goes for religion. You don't need it. And if you don't need it, the question becomes why? The reason you don't need the government of this earth, and when I say give, I'm talking about the attitudes about and how it embraces things. Give it up. Why? Because if you look at the foundational things in this earth, what you see is that the wealthier people are the ones who are spiritually inclined, because they are the ones who are able to make changes for the whole of humanity and influence all of mankind. Now, this is the thing that I think that we miss when we look at the whole church thing. The whole church thinks that everybody's supposed to be rich. And that is not true. We're so focused on being on money until we've lost our sight when it comes to spiritual essence. When we look at right now, I am extremely wealthy, spiritually. I honestly don't have a desire to be a billionaire. Why? Why would I want to do that? I don't need that. You see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
I don't need that. Why is it that everyone strives to make all the money they can make? Because that's God to them.
Even the ones that
Conscious or
hoard the money.
subconscious.
Even the one that hoards the money that they have to.
That's God to them.
Yeah.
Let me show you. If you believe the first verse and 23rd Psalm, then you don't have to be concerned about anything. Why would you want to be a billionaire when you're a trillionaire? When your funds are unlimited? think about it.
Yeah, you're setting boundaries for yourself otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I mean by unlimited is that whatever you need is already met. Because Yahweh is shepherding me, I have no lack. Now, when you believe that, you are not just hungry for all this stuff.
Right.
You are hungry for knowing how you can bring humanity to the place where you are. Now, the other thing is that you understand there is no such thing as doors closing on you. Because if you have no lack, then you think that you close the door on me, but you actually shut yourself out. You see the
Yes.
everything I need comes. And there are people who make sure that it happens. Not everything I want, because quite frankly, there are no things that I want. Imani was excited. She ordered some sneakers. She got probably enough sneakers to fill up his room. But anyway, some pink sneakers. Then she was excited. But then she opened the other box of sneakers that she had gotten. And Keisha's doing this thing for, she's managing the writing of the program for distribution for Adidas. So she get perks. So you money all these shoes. And she had these, they were green stripe around they're white with green stripe around the sole and neon green in the string. Oh, she was so excited. And she says, I say, oh, it's sneakers. She said, have you ever had anything that you've been truly excited about? And I'm like, no, not really. She says, when you got the enclave, because the Wonder Woman, right? Well, you weren't excited. I'm like, no. And then I thought back to when I had the watch built. I wasn't excited then. And it dawned on me that I was excited when I read the articles that you were sending about. I was excited when Janice sent me the title of this book that talked about Sophia in the earth. That's what excites me. And I didn't realize that until she raised that question. So, if that's what excites me, then that's a reminder to me that I am in this earth. I am in this world, but I'm not of it. And it's losing its influence on me. Now, that means that the government of the earth and the government of the church is losing the influence on me. Now, what does that mean? What does it look like? When the government loses its influence on me, that means that I can make a statement that long before the election, that the next election, there are going to be more women elected than ever before. The government have to bow to that. Boom. It happened. When I'm excited, then that means that the spiritual government has to bow to me. And what I'm saying is that when we talk about how the church is falling apart, it happened. These are the things I'm talking about. Now,
I have a question. I'm sorry. I know I got you right in the middle, and I know you're waiting. With your question too. But what is the difference between religious government and spiritual government? Because I hear you saying
I'm using the interchangeable on that.
earthly government and spiritual government, but then I see see spiritual government differently from
It is.
religious government, which is what I see in this
Right.
realm.
Right. And you're right, it is. And I'm using it interchange because of habit.
Okay, so
Yeah,
there's
There
a
is
clear
a
distinct
huge difference.
Okay.
Because the tree of life is representative of the spiritual government. The church, the mosque, the synagogue, this is the religious government. So that's what I'm talking about. So go ahead and ask your question because I'll forget again.
My question is, what we're seeing now, is there a war going on between the religious government and our political government?
Let me ask you, the religious government, no, there isn't one. Because without the religious government, Trump would be in office.
So when they're underpinning each other by having these policies that are anti.
The religious government was put in place to scare the heck out of folk, to keep them in line worldwide. The physical government was put in check to punish people who did not obey the laws that were written or obey the religious. They work hand in hand. If you read Revelations, it talks about that. The government receives its power from the beast of the earth, receives its power from the beast of the season, which is the religious government. Okay? Now, when Jesus talked about things like blessed are those who love, blessed are those, help me someone, it's about,
It depends on whether you're
Blessed
talking
are
about
those
mourning
who-
or whether you're talking
not mourning, I'm talking about the hate, the enemy.
Oh, when your
Blessed are
enemy,
those who
blessed,
are-
blessed are you when you're in, when,
Go ahead.
Blessed are those who love their enemies and despise their.
spitefully used.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm talking about.
Blessed are you
When men use you, when they seek to use you,
I ain't saying nothing.
well, we know you.
You probably got it.
No, everyone has
Yeah,
one.
I got you.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It talks about
Despitefully.
bless them that curse you and pray for them which despitefully use you. But it said, I say unto you here, love your enemies, do good to them which hate you, bless them that curse you, and pray for them which despitefully use you. Now, this is not just this is not talking about Evelyn being my enemy. This is talking about the enemy within. So when we deal with the enemy within, you don't have to worry about the enemy without, because you don't have an enemy. You don't have an enemy.
So when you're balanced, you don't have to worry about externally what's going on.
Right.
You don't have to worry, in your balance, you don't have to worry about what wars are going on or what the weather is like or what,
So there's no war.
yeah.
So there's no, see, to talk about warring, if the spiritual government and the religious government were at war, it'd be over. It would be over. It's not about defeating as much as it's about purifying. If all power is inherent in those who were all created in the image, and all of us are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without any exceptions, then if you exercise all that power you have, then there is no religious government. There's no war. It's just over. Now, when Jesus, let me say this, and I'll come back to you. When Jesus says, well, I say unto you, you which, he says unto you here, what he's saying is, concerning these matters, you need to change your mindset. That's what he's saying. concerning, what do you mean change your mindset? Stop looking outside of yourself for an enemy. Because there are no enemies. You're your own enemy. Change your mindset about people who you think that's used. He can't about use you. He said, bless them that curse you. What is it? The curse talks about uncovering something that's deep inside. So what do you think that is? Well, he said, bless those who curse you. Say something good about them. That's what the bless, that's translated bless them. Say something good about them who curse you. What are you talking about? This is what he's saying. When someone it forces you to dig deep inside of yourself to keep from going off on them, say something good about them. Because they have brought out of you a quality that's been buried for years, for generations. What am I saying? In every one of us, there is the desire to bring balance to humanity. In every one of us, there is a knowing beyond our minds knowing. And the knowing is, the reason we are so forgiving is because that's who we are. So if you have to dig deep inside of yourself to keep from going off on someone, then that in itself is a blessing to you. Because you have uncovered something. But we have been taught, don't let nobody run over you. Don't let anybody take advantage of you. All these things we've been taught. Now, if you understand who you are, who can take advantage of you? How can you take advantage of Elohim? You cannot use me. That's impossible. One of the things that bothers me is when someone tells me it's not me, it's all God. That was not me speaking, that was God. You know, that bothers me. Now, it was you. It was you. If you were to say to them, if you were not speaking, then why do you say thank you? And somebody say you did a good job. It was thank you, but it wasn't me, it's all God. Yeah. It's you. And when I was talking about this particular thing, I'm talking about it's you, and some ministers were sitting there, right? I'm like, this is you, because the stuff you're saying is not in the Bible, so why would God be telling you that? It doesn't make sense to me. So Jesus actually is talking about showing us how to be delivered from the stupidity that we have brought into being. It's crazy to think that you have an enemy. Let me show you something, how it works. And I have to use earthly things to explain some heavenly stuff. Donald Trump wanted to go to Venezuela. The Russians got there first.
The who got there first?
The Russians.
Yeah.
The Cubans. Now, he wanted to foster a coup in Venezuela. It failed.